Welcome along on our A350 journey here with Singapore Airlines Premium Economy from San Francisco, California off to Singapore. We are here bright and early at San Francisco's International Terminal about 7 a.m. as we head on inside. Now, this may look familiar from the Lufthansa 747 video of mine if you've seen that, but I still think that the plans and the architecture of this 20-30-year-old terminal here is just beautiful. Now, Singapore and Lufthansa actually share the same counter, so they actually just change signs throughout the day as those flights go in and out. Now, we got here early because there were supposed to be some pretty big lines showing up, so to kill time while we waited for it to open, we hung out by the restaurants just next to the counter, just within eye shot. So once people started showing up, we were able to actually head back over and get in line. Once we saw people starting to show up, we went and got in our premium economy line. Each cabin actually has their own individual line, and once those bags were checked, we made the short walk across the aisle and got in line for security. Well, we're through security and onto the G gates here in San Francisco. Now, unfortunately, we had to bypass the Polaris Lounge as it's only for the business class travelers on Singapore. So instead, we adventured onto Terminal 3 to kill some time, mostly to get some breakfast. You'll see here there's much better restaurant selections, in my opinion, in Terminal 3 as opposed to the International Terminal. And with breakfast consumed about an hour before boarding, we headed back to the G gates to the International Terminal to keep an eye out for our airplane. Now, the International Terminal G gates here are primarily United and their Star Alliance partners, so you'll see a lot of those airlines in this terminal, whereas SkyTeam and One World tend to be in the A gates. And with the ramp crew ready, we finally got our first glimpse of our Singapore Airlines A350-900 coming around the corner. Now, we didn't get the ULR version today, this is just the basic 900, but we did get the ULR for our journey back to San Francisco, so you can keep your eyes peeled for that. Now, I'm especially excited for this flight for a couple of reasons. First off, it's my first ultra long haul flight, so I'm excited to see how that feels. And second off, it's my first flight on the A350. I've been on the 787, and so I'm excited to see the Airbus counterpart to that as far as the new revolutionary technology in aviation goes. Now, one thing I do want to show you here is that throughout the international terminal, every gate has its own individual art piece. Now, whether it's based off of something in San Francisco or just something else around the world, it is pretty cool to walk around and see all the local artists' art around the terminal. Now, I was talking about the Star Alliance partners and all that, and as you can see here, we got an Air India 777 heading out to Delhi, and right next to that is a United 777 getting ready to make that exact same journey.
I don't need it. I definitely don't need it. I need it!
Alright, but all jokes aside, the outdoor terrace here at the end of the G gates is just a fantastic place to come and kill time and watch airplanes come in and out while you eat some food, given that it's not too foggy or cold of a day. Now, with catering wrapping up and people starting to gather by the gate, I'm going to use that as my sign to head on downstairs and get ready to get on board this airplane. Now, the way that San Francisco sets up its international terminal is there's an upper level with all the restaurants and bathrooms and a bunch more seating, and then all the gates, the individual gates, you actually have to go downstairs to get to. So the upper level has a nice open feeling, but it ends up feeling a little bit more cramped downstairs. Well, I just heard the premium economy cabin get called, so come with me and let's get on board. Now, as we approached the door, every passenger, free of charge, was able to grab a pair of headphones as well as a care kit with some sanitizing materials, which was just some great amenities given to us before boarding. Now, it was just such a treat to be able to see this beautiful business class cabin, which we did fly in on our return flight back to San Francisco, so make sure to keep your eyes peeled for that video. But shortly after that walk, we reached our seats here at 33A and 33C, part of the premium economy cabin. That's only a few rows deep, which offers a pretty private cabin feel for those in premium economy. Now, the best comparison cabin that I can think of is the United 787 Premium Economy, which I flew on, and I find the seat to have a little bit more legroom and a little bit more pitch, as well as the seat just being a little bit more comfortable. You'll see here that we've got some pretty good legroom in front of us, a very large IFV screen, which was super clear and great on this flight. Footrest to help feel like you're a little more reclined than you actually are, which was great. A couple water bottle storages. We've got a remote here next to the seat to control the seatback TV, which also worked by touch. We had our tray table stored in our armrest, as well as headset jacks and USB ports between the seats. Then on the other armrest, we had a button to control the seat back, as well as a button to control the leg rest, and a small storage big enough for just about a phone. Now, the A350 wing is massive, which was wonderful flying through turbulence. However, if you are sitting over the wing, you're going to notice that there's not a lot of visibility both in front and behind that wing. Now, I want to take a look at the care kit here that we were given. Now, it's got some great stuff on it. You can pull up the menu for the flight, you can buy Wi-Fi for the flight, and stuff like that, as well as there's some sanitizing wipes and different things to keep you and the airplane seat that you're sitting in clean for this journey. Now, in premium economy, we were also given these over-ear headphones with headphone covers to keep it clean, and they were pretty good. They weren't quite as good as what I'd say we had on Lufthansa, but all in all, they were pretty good. As we taxi out here, I'll try and get as good of a video as I can visibility-wise with this big old wing here, but it's just always fun taxiing out from this terminal, being able to see all the different airplanes and airlines as opposed to just the regular domestic carriers that you're used to seeing in the other terminals.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a safety reminder, the U.S. authorities do not allow persons to be
that, we said goodbye to the California coast, and it was the last land that we'd see for probably about 15 hours until we crossed the Philippine Islands a little bit later across the Pacific. Now, there is something daunting about seeing over 16 hours left of flight time on your map, but looking at the whole globe, it does make sense considering we're crossing the entire Pacific Ocean. Now, the tray table was plenty big enough and super sturdy, but you'll see here with your seat in the reclined position, it rests right on your knees, which wasn't great for eating. Now, Singapore Airlines airplanes do have the Wi-Fi on board, and they're plenty fast for just browsing the internet. You aren't able to buy it for the entire flight, however. In premium economy, we were paying for a certain amount of megabits or a certain amount of time, but you were at least able to pause and resume that connection. Now, I used the QR code that we were given on the back of the care kit in order to access the in-flight menu. We weren't actually given a physical menu card, and so this was the best substitute for it. Now, you're welcome to pause and read through some of the options, but shortly you'll be able to see the food that I had ordered on this flight, which was all in all pretty good for a premium economy product. Now, we were given all hot meals, which in premium economy was a very good treat. I went with the lamb option for our dinner here, and it came with a nice dessert and a cup of coffee, but I opted to go for a glass of white wine in place of that. Now, seat next to me here, you can see shortly here was the chicken option, which was the other option given to us, which I heard was also just about as good. And while it might be a small detail, one of my favorite things was this foot pedal in the bathroom, so you don't have to push down on that trash chute just after washing your hands. Well, the flight attendants came around and asked us to start closing our window shades so people can sleep if they want to. It's about 4 a.m. in Singapore at this time, so we're going to get whatever sleep we can in this small 3-row cabin. After getting a few hours of sleep, I guess it's time to make caffeine the hero. So we're going to stay awake now, keep ourselves busy, and try to make it through the rest of this flight. Give us plenty of time to explore the cabin, however. Now, our 3-row premium economy cabin was actually fantastic and super cozy. Now, if we walk back from there, we're going to enter the economy cabin, and while super dark, all the window shades closed, everyone seemed to be asleep for the most part, so it's got to be comfy enough, which I guess you kind of have to come to expect on a flight of this length. Now, the real party was back here in the aft galley. You'll see the light stayed on there, and they had curtains to try and block the light out for those passengers who wanted to sleep. This is where most of the restrooms were for everyone to use, although there was other bathrooms in the other cabins as well. But one of the best things about this was that there was basically staff at your service the entire flight, even in the economy and premium economy cabin. You could order any juices or teas, and they had this nice basket of snacks. You could come back and basically grab whatever you want free of charge and take it back to your seat. I opted to go for the coffee bread, which was fantastic, and I ordered a cup of coffee, which was brought to my seat by a flight attendant. A couple minutes later, just nice and hot and freshly made. It was fantastic. They had a great selection of movies and TV shows, honestly, on this flight. I went for a Marvel movie for the sole purpose of it passed a good 3.5 hours of this 16.5-hour flight, which was fantastic and felt like time flew right by. About midway across the Pacific, we hit our first and only encounter of turbulence on this flight, but it did mean that the fastest seatbelt signs had to come on and the lights had to be raised just slightly for the crew to make their inspections and make sure that people had fastened their seatbelts. Not long after that, though, the lights came up even a little bit more and the flight attendants came around to get our order for our next meal that was on its way. Now it was brunch time. I went for the shrimp scrambled egg, which was another hot dish, which was prepared perfectly, in my opinion, for what I was expecting in this cabin. Now I went with another cup of coffee, of course, with 3 hours of sleep. We still had about 6 hours left in the flight, and I was determined to keep myself awake and going, considering I had to fall asleep as soon as I got to my hotel in Singapore. Now, one thing that I found tough on this flight is that unless there was a meal being served, all the window shades were kept shut, and so the cabin stayed pretty dark the entire time. That was until we reached the Philippine Islands about 14 hours into the flight. People started finally raising up their window shades, since it was the first time we'd seen land since our departure. Now, a little tip for those of you in premium economy: when you don't want to be actively wearing your headphones and listening to the TV, you can hang them right here on the reading light that's in the middle of the seats here. With just under an hour left in the flight here, the sun was finally starting to set, and I really wanted to see the country of Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia on our way in, so it was really a race against the sun at this point. That we have begun our descent, so the flight attendants are having everyone open up their windows and getting ready for our arrival into Singapore. Now, while the camera didn't do a great job at picking it up, we did get pretty good views of Indonesia and Malaysia as we approached Singapore. Because Singapore is so densely populated, however, it really did stand out just because of how lit up it was. But our arrival took us north of Singapore, so we could arrive from that side. So we did get pretty low over Malaysia, and it was interesting to see. Now, one thing I do want to make note of is you can hear the music playing, and that's not music that I added. They actually have music continuously playing throughout takeoff and landing all the way. Well, you'll notice here that pretty much as soon as we landed, and how humid it is in Singapore right on the equator, the windows almost immediately started fogging up. So got whatever footage I can as we taxied into our gate, but you'll notice that it just gets foggier and foggier as we get closer. Now, as we get off the plane, I do want to make a note. We sat in these seats for about 17 hours, maybe 17 and a half from boarding to deboarding. And honestly, I thought I'd be a little more sore getting off, but I felt pretty good getting off the seats. The seats were really comfortable and they were pretty easy to sleep in. Just having a window may have been a little bit better to rest my head along. But we did have the area in the back galley to kind of get up, stretch your legs a little bit, chat with flight attendants, and get food and drink as needed. And so they kept us pretty well entertained, and all in all, the 17-hour flight went by much quicker than I had thought it would. Now, the easy thing is, because Singapore is such a small country, every flight coming into it is international, and so they're able to funnel every passenger through the immigration checkpoints. Now, Singapore has an online website and app where you can pre-file all your information for your stay while you're there in Singapore. If not, you can stand to the side and program that in before you go through the customs. But once we had gotten through immigration, after about a 30-minute wait, we were off to baggage claim to pick up our bags. Now, the airport in this terminal was just massive. There was flights everywhere, different baggage claims, all with multiple flights serviced on them. So we walked over to baggage claim 14, found our bags, and started heading out towards our Grab car, which is the Uber equivalent in Singapore. And as we walked out, we just couldn't help but marvel at the architecture of this beautiful airport, which on our return journey back to San Francisco we took a much better look at. So stay tuned for that, and in the meantime, thanks for traveling with us, thanks for watching, and if you liked it, give us a follow. Thank you.